You're watching UATV News. My name is Inna Kosinska. Good evening. President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelenskyy arrived to Brussels to participate in the Eastern Partnership Summit. He's going to stay in the capital of Belgium for 2 days. During the visit, the head of state will hold bilateral meetings with the leaders of the EU member states and partner countries, in particular with President of France Emmanuel Macron and new Chancellor of Germany Olaf Scholz. And before summit opened, he had already met the President of the European Council, Charles Michel.
Coordinated positions with Charles Michel before the 6th Eastern Partnership Summit. Our goal is Ukraine's full membership in the European Union. Informed about the situation on the eastern borders, we expect clear signals following the EU Council's meeting on December 16th on the inadmissibility of escalation. Volodymyr Zelenskyy, President of Ukraine, in Twitter.
Restoring public trust in the judiciary is a major challenge. President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelenskyy told this to the newly appointed judges. The day before, the solemn ceremony of taking the oath took place at the office of the head of state. Volodymyr Zelenskyy urged those present to remember its words every time they make decisions on behalf of Ukraine.
Треба будувати новий суд.
We need to build a new court, the court which people, our society, each of us trusts. A court that is respected, a court that is an example for everyone to be able to say that Ukrainian court is a court that everyone trusts. I'm sure that all this is possible. I'm sure that there are many people, and among you, who are judges. A court, the virtue of which is beyond any doubt.
Purchase of weapons under the NATO program. In the near future, Ukraine plans to receive the appropriate permission from the alliance member states. This was stated by Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, Dmytro Kuleba. He said that now active negotiations are underway with Germany. Earlier, official Berlin opposed Ukraine's receiving ammunition and weapons under the NATO program. But the other day, Dmytro Kuleba raised this issue again during a conversation with his German colleague, Annalena Baerbock.
Ми працювали над отриманням Україною доступу.
We worked to provide Ukraine with access to NATO's defense procurement system, and we solved this problem. Ukraine received this access. This means that the Ukrainian Minister of Defense can directly, through the Ukrainian ProZorro system and a similar system in NATO, buy weapons or military equipment from the allies. But these purchases do not happen automatically. They need political approval. Ms. Annalena Baerbock and I discussed this issue and agreed that diplomatic negotiations would be enough to find a way out of any situation.
There can be no negotiations about Ukraine without Ukraine. This was stated by the U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for European and Eurasian Affairs, Donfried, in Kyiv on the eve of her visit to Moscow. According to her, the United States are working closely with Ukraine and Russia to find a peaceful solution to the conflict. If Russia does not take the path of dialogue and commits repeated acts of aggression against Ukraine, the White House will take measures that will have serious consequences for the Kremlin.
Our aim is to support our Ukrainian colleagues as we work to de-escalate tensions due to Russia's buildup. As President Biden and Secretary Blinken have reiterated, we are committed to ensuring no decisions or discussions take place about Ukraine without Ukraine. The notion that we would push Ukraine to make concessions in discussions and dialogue with Russia is pure disinformation and should be treated as such. The truth is that we are united with Ukraine, our NATO allies and partners around the world in our efforts to pursue diplomacy and de-escalate a dangerous situation.
Meanwhile, the White House called the current Donfried talks in Ukraine and Russia and her subsequent visit to Brussels a positive signal. U.S. efforts are focused on a diplomatic approach to de-escalate the conflict in the east of Ukraine and along the Ukrainian-Russian border, White House press secretary said.
She's in Moscow to meet with Russian leaders to express our concerns about Russia's escalation of forces surrounding Ukraine and to speak directly with senior Russian officials and underscore our commitment to help resolve the conflict in eastern Ukraine. So those conversations are a reflection of the follow-on that we expected and predicted following the conversations last week. Of course, our objective continues to keep this on a diplomatic path and to lead to de-escalation.
More than 300 Ukrainians are kept in custody in the uncontrolled territories of Donetsk and Luhansk regions. Among the prisoners are volunteers, military men and civilians. The last big mutual release of detainees took place in 2019 on the New Year's Eve. Among those whom Ukraine managed to return home was Stanislav Pechonkin. He spent 2 years in prison, including 7 months in the notorious Izolyatsia. He shared his memories with our correspondent.
December 29, 2019, the Mayorsk checkpoint in Donetsk region. One of the last mutual releases of the detained between the Ukrainian side and the occupying administrations was made according to the formula 100 to 100 people. Illegal armed formations then transferred 76 people to Ukraine. Of them, 12 were military personnel, the rest were civilians. This list also included a native of Horlivka, Stanislav Pechonkin. He remembers how in 2017 a few random photos on a tablet divided his life into before and after.
Объектив моего планшета, я на планшет снимал.
The lens of my tablet got the car of the head of city department of the so-called State Security Ministry, Alexei Alchinov. They caught me and brought to the municipal department of this ministry, seized the tablet and the phone. The self-proclaimed authorities accused Stanislav of espionage. After being tortured with electric shocks, he was taken to the so-called Izolyatsia prison. It is located on a territory of former insulation materials factory. In 2014, the illegal armed groups turned it into a real torture place for prisoners.
Первые дни вообще били каждый день.
The first days, they bat me every day. As we joked back then, I used to live without touching the floor. They said those were educational measures, but in fact, tortures were a kind of entertainment for them. We had to do hard physical work. We loaded ammunition, maintained their military equipment. 7 months later, staying in the Izolyatsia, Stanislav was sentenced to 10 years in prison and sent to the Makivka correctional facility. He stayed there for almost a year and a half.
Это, конечно, было очень-очень сложно.
Of course, it was very difficult morally, first of all. Having been released, Stanislav underwent a month of rehabilitation. Later, as a civilian, he got a compensation from the state. He invested money in housing, buying a flat in Kramatorsk. The former prisoner of the Izolatsia is sure that things happening behind those walls should not be kept in silence.
Those are very courageous people who can talk about it, about what they went through. And people need to talk about this to really stop it, to punish those who are torturing people in Europe today, in the 21st century.
At present, more than 300 Ukrainians are being held in prisons in the uncontrolled territories of Donetsk and Luhansk regions. Among them are volunteers, military personnel and civilians. Reported by Alona Hramova and Vadim Kramer, UATV News.
About 370 million hryvnias were allocated to pay miners' wage arrears. This was announced by the Minister of Energy of Ukraine, Herman Halushenko, at a meeting with trade unions. This is the first part of the money that will be used to pay off the debts. Within a week, the enterprises will get another 700 million hryvnias from the electricity generation company Centrenergo. About 90 million more hryvnias will be allocated by the ministry from its own state funds. To remind, last week miners in Kyiv region protested our wage arrears.
The Ministry of Energy has ensured the payment of state budget funds which were provided to miners in 2021 in full. In addition, we would like to note that 6.5 billion hryvnias were paid in the first 11 months of this year. Thus, the level of payroll is almost 85%.
Thousands of innovative solutions embodied in business, over $200 million in investments, hundreds of successfully implemented joint startups. The fourth International Ukrainian-Israeli Summit of Innovative Solutions is held in Kyiv. This year, the event attracted the attention of more than 50 companies willing to share their innovations in various business areas. According to organizers, this is an excellent platform for the implementation of startups in the areas of IT, security, healthcare, real estate development, and many others. Ukraine is actively developing in the field of startups, and we believe that we have a great potential for cooperation, which is now only at the first stage. Moreover, within the framework of this year's summit, a series of memorandum was signed on large-scale projects of public-private partnership between Israel and Ukraine to create joint startups. Developing industry without harming the planet, this is the task set by the participants of Ecoindustrial Parks forum held in Kyiv. Officials, economists and businessmen gathered to discuss the policy and readiness of Ukraine to introduce such sites, financing of parks, and in general share the international experience. The main goal is to attract investors for the transformation of Ukrainian industrial parks into eco-industrial.
Кліматичні зміни створюють виклик.
Climate change poses a challenge of how can we achieve economic growth and prosperity in a way that does not harm the environment and the climate. The future of our generation and the planet as a whole will depend on how we respond to this challenge at community and state levels. Eco-industrial parks are a way to stimulate sustainable economic development. It aims to minimize environmental damage and create closed cycles of resource and waste use. Ukraine is going to join the global network of COVID certificates. This network consists of more than 80 countries. Now our documents are recognized by 52 states. According to the Minister of Health, Ukrainians will be able to visit all countries without a PCR test and self-isolation only with a vaccination certificate if the pandemic situation allows. Travels will become possible to not only Europe but Asia as well.
Учасники мережі будуть визнавати
Network members will recognize each other's digital documents and will not require additional COVID documents to cross borders. For vaccinated Ukrainians, this means one thing: free and convenient travel to more countries, without PCR test and self-isolation in the countries of arrival when their epidemic situation allows. Modernization of the Hotel Ukraina, which is located in the center of Kyiv, and opening of the University of Hospitality. The head of the Office of the President, Andriy Yermak, announced signing of a memorandum with an investor company from Qatar, which will invest in the development of a number of facilities in Ukraine. In addition, the document provides the implementation of joint projects in tourism and the exchange of experience in hotel business development. This is set to bring the tourism industry of Ukraine to a new level.
Такі проекти також допоможуть нам.
Such projects will also help us to look more competitive for investors as well, because the questions asked by the investors include both the number of tourists and the demand we have in the middle of the country. Therefore, the complex development of infrastructure, education and marketing is exactly what will help Ukraine to become a leading tourist destination in the region and really ensure economic growth. The longest train route in Ukraine and its first passengers have already reached their point of destination. On the eve, the train from Mariupol in Donetsk region in the east of the country left for Kyiv of the Transcarpathian region in western Ukraine. This was its first trip, covering more than 1,800 kilometers through 12 regions. Our correspondent was among the first passengers.
The newest carriages of the new passenger train Mariupol-Kyiv are equipped with video surveillance systems in shared areas, as well as alarm systems in each compartment. This is how the alarm in the compartment works. So when a passenger closes the door, he closes it with a lock or a locking bar and simply presses a button on top of the alarm device. If anyone outside the compartment tries to break in, this alarm will go off both at the conductor's and in the passenger's compartment. That is, everyone will be aware, and accordingly the violator will be caught. New two-component boilers are the conductor's pride.
This miracle is called a combined type electric boiler. It works from the network from electricity, and it works from solid fuel, that is a coal briquette or firewood. It works both from that and from that. So if we do not have electricity, then we will still have hot water. A little more than a day on the way, and passengers of the first train, Mariupol-Kyiv, from this slush of big cities get into the snowy winter Carpathian mountains. Indeed, it was worth it.
Most of the passengers of the Mariupol-Kyiv train get off at the Tatarev station. It is only 15 minutes away by car from the ski resort. Now at the station, and this is the most important thing, the platform was lengthened. That is, the station can receive up to 12 cars. This means one no longer needs to jump off the carriage onto the gravel, but can safely get off. Plus extended sails, we can take more passengers here in Tatarev. And this is the closest point. Literally, it is 15 minutes away from the ski slopes.
The ski season in the Carpathians is just beginning. Its peak usually starts on the New Year and Christmas holidays. But we see that a lot of people are already skiing on the slopes of the mountains, both beginners and professionals. Because snow has fallen in the Carpathians, which means that one can and should ski. And where there is not enough natural snow, the artificial helps.
очень круто, очень шикарно.
That is great. Everything is wonderful. The only thing is that I would like more tracks, but I think everything will be done in the near future, so everyone should come here. Here is a fairy tale, a winter fairy tale. You should definitely come. At present, 8 different trains run to the Carpathians from different regions of Ukraine. By the New Year holidays, the Ukrzaliznytsia State Railroads Management Company plans to launch 2 more. Reported by Vadim Kramer and Olena Diduch, UATV News.
That's all for this hour. More updates on our official website, YouTube, Twitter and Facebook pages. Thank you for staying with the UATV channel. See you tomorrow. Goodbye.